Marijuana advocate, safe to say.
Yeah.
Aspiring politician, perhaps.
I've run for office a few times.
There you go. And we are here to speak about many things, but first and foremost, the fact that your husband, the Prince of Pot, Marc Emery, is getting out of prison after 5 years in the U.S. tomorrow. It's got to be emotional.
Well, his sentence ends tomorrow, but even more injustice is that he'll actually be in the U.S. for a number of weeks or maybe even months longer. Even though his sentence ends on the 9th, immigrants only get picked up on Thursdays, so we're lucky that's the 10th, the next day. But then he'll be taken to a privately run facility for deportation in Louisiana, where he'll wait for an unknown amount of time for them to do his paperwork. The Canadian U.S. governments have to do all that. And the only notice I'll get is a phone call where he says, Jodie, they're flying me home, get to Toronto and get to Windsor, because they drop Canadians off at the border out there. So he won't even come home to Vancouver, and we don't even know when.
You know, there's a great deal of sacrifice to say 5 years of your life have been missed, but, you know, he did it for a cause, and given the price that was paid, what would you say is the biggest benefit, seeing what has changed over the last 5 years? You
know, 20 years ago, in 1994, no medical marijuana existed, even in California, and Marc started selling seeds and raising money to give away. So activist groups and ballot initiatives, court cases, patients, a lot of people benefited and became very powerful and influential. So he actually had to fight for Canada, too, to even allow High Times magazine into this country. Marijuana literature was illegal, and back in London, Ontario, he opened his bookstore on Sundays illegally and sold rap music that was illegal and sold marijuana literature that was illegal. So he always used peaceful civil disobedience to break bad laws. But he's very excited, of course, as I am, to see all the progress in the U.S. I mean, today, let's go down to Washington. We can buy some pot. You know, it's incredible.
And now let's talk about that in particular, because there's a discussion, an ongoing discussion about the testing of various strains of marijuana and how the THC levels today are much higher than what might have been 10, 20 years ago. There's structure in place in the states that have legalized and are selling. That doesn't yet exist here, does it? Well,
that's all kind of like a bunch of gobbledygook, to be honest. Like, if you're looking at a bottle of wine or liquor, they can get specific percentages. Or, you know, in marijuana, though, THC is one of many cannabinoids inside the resin heads, the sticky part that makes hash, and that changes from day to day. Its THC content changes just by being subjected to UV rays or heat. So as soon as you light that joint, THC content will go up or down. It's really quite fluctuating.
Hasn't it been proven that the THC levels have risen between 25 and 50 times in the last 20 years?
A lot of people from the 70s and 60s say the original strains were really powerful. And if you want to talk about Prohibition causing THC levels to rise, that's why. This plant, when it grows out in the wild, it grows as hemp, it still has these levels of THC and other cannabinoids. But when you have to make it illegal and take it inside and put it into a little greenhouse in your basement, well, naturally, anybody growing any plant will try and get the best environmental conditions possible. So it's kind of like a greenhouse for a rose, or any other plant. You're going to grow it a particular way to get the best product you can. So Prohibition is actually the cause of higher THC levels, if you want to say that does exist.
You know, there's definitely an appetite for the discussion on both sides. We've had Dana Larson from Sensible BC on this show talking about decriminalizing cannabis. When it comes to the mission, and I know politically with the federal election coming up at 2015, I know this is going to be a push for the Emery camp. What about the idea of the risks associated with impaired driving, the substance addiction that goes on? How do you address those key issues for people that are against your message?
Right. Well, first of all, addiction for marijuana has been disproven by most people. It can become habitual for some, just like video games, very addictive for some people. Running can be very addictive for people. They can't go without their exercise. Coffee is extremely addictive. You have people who cannot function at work without coffee. So if it is addictive, making it illegal is not going to help anybody. You need to educate about responsible use, and if people do have problems with habitual use that they're struggling with, they should be able to seek help and not get arrested for it. With driving impaired, it's an interesting argument. I would say impairment is proven by performance. You can be driving dangerously with your kids yelling at you, with sleep deprivation, with the music too loud, with being distracted by that pretty girl in the street. You know, impaired driving is proven by performance, and when police see you driving dangerously, swerving, doing anything like that, they have reason to pull you over, and then they can find out, why are you driving dangerously? You're on your cell phone, you've got no sleep, you're on pharmaceutical drugs that say do not operate heavy machinery, and those are available everywhere. Many people are on those drugs. But when it comes to marijuana, marijuana, it's not really a problem on the roads. If it was, we would see more examples of it. And in many of the cases where they cite marijuana being involved in accidents, they admit that alcohol was the primary factor. But with responsible education about driving safely no matter what, that's the way to handle it. Arresting people and trying to test them for THC levels, it doesn't quite work. In fact, THC stays in your system for much longer after you consume it, whereas drug testing for cocaine and those drugs, they disappear almost right away.
That's been proven by the Olympic Games with the Ross Rebliati situation. Thank you so much for being here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Best of luck in gathering your husband back from the U.S. and on your 30-city cross-country tour that you are going to embark on. Please make the BT Couch a stop for you and Marc when you come back.
That would be great. And our 8-year wedding anniversary is this 23rd, so hopefully he'll be home by then.
Congratulations on that.
CannabisCulture.com is the website to find out more information. Again, thanks very much, Jodie, for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it all around.